It was a beautiful afternoon. My son and I were watching football inside while two of my grandsons were playing football outside. Our backyard was ideal for playing the game. Beautiful turf, walls on all four sides. Perfect. But those perfect walls were too tempting, I suppose, because the boys, within minutes, came running in with this announcement. Papa, the football just accidentally went over the wall and into my neighbor's backyard. The one neighbor I didn't know so well. On top of that, he wasn't home. So I ever so cautiously opened the gate, even clapping my hands a few times. Anybody here? Hello? And then once inside, like three ninjas, we made our way across the yard, past the pool, around the trees. I'm hoping we don't get shot, but the boys were having a blast. This ball retrieval mission had become sort of an updated Hardy Boys adventure. Well, we grabbed the ball, quickly returned to the safety of my backyard. Then I said, boys, try to be more careful. I don't know this new neighbor, and I'd rather not have to make the trip again. Got it? Well, sure enough, not 5 minutes later, back inside they came with a slightly different announcement. Zay's shoe just went over the wall. His shoe? Really? They even had a backstory prepared about how they tried to punt the ball, but off came the shoe and blah, blah, blah. I grabbed the boys. We headed off for a second adventure. Everybody but Nolan. My daughter Andrea said, "Come over here, Nolan." "Yes, Auntie?" "Nolan, tell me, how did Zay's shoe get over the wall?" "Auntie, well, it jumped, and he used these huge, sweeping arm motions, the whole drill. It just jumped over the wall." "Nolan, tell me the truth. What really happened?" "Auntie, I threw it." Here's why all these years later that story matters. It's not about the football. If you can't get that one back, there will be another. What matters is how it got there. When you're training little boys how to be men of honor, what matters is, did that shoe really just happen to flew over the wall, or did somebody purposefully threw it over the wall? And on today's show, we're going to talk about why that matters. Before we dive in, I want to thank WYREFI. This show that so many of you are clearly enjoying wouldn't be possible without them. What is WYREFI? Well, let's just say that you've got your degree, but you're still eating ramen. Do you find that too hard to imagine, or is that your life? Well, while you're waiting on the microwave to heat up your noodles, give WYREFI a call at 1-888-WYREFI-85. Let's also give a shout out to our co-hosts for today. We've got Bruce Templeton.
Hey, everybody.
All right, John Samples.
I've got your cartoon.
Todd Bussey.
Hey, everybody.
And that's the crew. Just saying, good friends. Good old friends. Now, here's a story you can sink your teeth into. In a world of glass buildings, corner offices, and six-figure starting salaries, plus human snack options.
What you talking about, Wyatt?
Oh, it's true. I want you to picture one of those white shoe. We only hire the best of the best law firms, the future rainmakers, the ones who survived law school and want a taste of the big leagues. But at one of those law firms recently, one employee, nicknamed by the internet as the Big Law Biter, she started on day one biting people. We're talking actual teeth on actual human skin. She's chomping on her coworkers. Not a playful little nip, not a whoop, My bad, Grays. We're talking a full toddler in a tantrum chew session with marks and everything.
Wow.
And it wasn't just once. Her coworkers said her victims actually tallied in the double digits before they finally pulled the plug on her. And she didn't just bite people at the bottom of the totem pole. We're talking lawyers and even one person from HR.
No. You trust me. You don't want to mess with HR.
Yeah.
So I've heard.
Well, they should have seen it coming because on the day of her onboard training, she said, "I like biting" as her fun fact. Okay? Not hiking, not flying, biting. It got so weird that people started wearing long sleeves in the middle of July. The firm finally canned her after the chomp count got too high to ignore. All right, team, react. Give me your first thoughts. Is this the most unhinged workplace story you've ever heard?
I would say yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she wanted to,
You think?
maybe she wanted to take a bite out of crime is one thing I'm thinking about on that. But yeah, I mean, I did hear one place where the boss woman, she got her manicure and pedicures in the office, and afterwards she had her employees empty the buckets that she used to soak her feet in.
Oh,
That
There you
feels
go.
like it crosses the
nice.
line.
Bonnie Fife had a good comment, she's a nut. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Oh my gosh. I think so.
Kind of explains why lawyers are called sharks.
Okay, there you go. That's good.
So,
I like that one.
So what are some possible motivations here? Was the pressure cooker a little too much? Was she trying to get attention to too great a degree? Or maybe it was toddler regression therapy? What are your thoughts?
Toddler regression. I like that one.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, some accomplished adult said, you know what? I got a lot more done when I was in the toddler room when I would just bite people. It's the original conflict resolution.
I identify with that, Todd, because my wife says I'm still in toddler regression therapy. Like my
Well,
whole life.
yes. But you can imagine that you don't have to deal with HR, no passive aggressive. You just kind of take a direct, I disagree with you, and num, and you're done.
Whatever her motivation, you got to say, if you go back to chemistry class in high school, the frog was in the beaker for this girl.
Yeah, the flame set on high, yeah. She's cooked.
Have any of you guys ever had a coworker go full unhinged in some weird way?
I would tell you, if they did like anywhere near something like that, I don't think I'd be waiting till there were like 36 bites and, months before I dealt something about it. I think if somebody came in and said, hey, one of my hobbies is I like to nibble on people. I would say there are other professions you can be a part of. I'd be very successful with that.
Yeah.
I had a secretary that did that on a regular basis to just about anybody and everybody. I'm telling you, I thought, what is going on with her?
She bit people?
Huh? No, she didn't bite people, but she bit their heads off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, you want someone at the front door like that for sure. No doubt about it.
That's not a problem.
All right. Hey, let's move on. It's everybody's worst nightmare. What's that?
What's that?
You have to contact your local Department of Motor Vehicle. Except this time you don't actually have to go, assuming that a phone call is better. But you get, of course, the automated system. We all love those. For this department, press this. You know the drill. You know it painfully well. One of the options is always to continue the call in science. So let's say your primary language is Espanol. So when the computer says to continue in Spanish, press 2, you do. You press 2. But instead of a pleasant voice speaking in your native tongue, what you get instead is something that sounds a lot like this.
How many times have I asked you to try my mother's blood sausage?
Matter, amigos. You got troubles?
Are you saying this actually happened? Kind of like how my wife has some dude speaking in an Australian accent on their GPS. It wasn't like real Spanish. It was somebody.
Yep, not a joke. It
the
really
Spanish
happened. Evidently, the state of Washington rolled out a new AI phone system, and somebody must have decided, yeah, close enough. And coming out of Washington State, that's not a shock. I take it you don't believe me, so play it, Jeremy.
Thank you for calling the Department of Licensing Customer Support Center. For assistance with scheduling a driver licensing office appointment, canceling an existing appointment.
Actual call.
That doesn't even help you to understand it in English, much less in Spanish. You've confused two languages right there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you want it in your language, but instead you get Sofia Vergara, right?
I hate the ukulele. Ukulele.
So it was a movie about revenge. Redemption.
Don't love you, lady.
All right, class. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. Who approved this? Some decider in the corner office somewhere had to sign off on this. Yep, nailed it.
Yeah, you got to remember, John, Washington is a state where you can legally buy a pot on just about every street corner, and probably in the corner office as well.
Can you do that accent for us, Bruce?
Yeah. See, no, I can't. I'm only tempted for legal reasons.
The restraining order is still in effect.
Well, I think you laugh about it, but I would also think it's kind of a big deal. You're not just releasing an inferior product. I mean, you are kind of insulting very people you're supposed to be helping. Does that even make sense at all?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Todd, but we've had fun with accents for a really long time. For example, rednecks.
Whoa! Wow, hold on there, son. You quit preaching
little
and going to
self-identity
meddling.
there?
That whole term came from my neck of the woods, West Virginia. And
Right across the border from mine.
And I find that, just like others, a little too insulting, my friend.
Oh, well.
You've always had a thin skin.
Let's go back to Spanish accents. Check out YouTube, and whether it's Antonio Banderas or Speedy Gonzalez.
These pussycats trying to lure me with this cheese.
And what about Sofia Vergara? And my personal favorite, well, let's just play the clip and see if anybody can guess my favorite.
All right.
Anybody? Oh, man.
Pepe the Puppet or something like that?
Okay, back to the
Right.
phone call.
That's all
It kind of
right.
feels like everything is getting automated these days. Rare is the interaction when we can have a conversation with real people. It's
A
crazy.
silent death. It's a death for me. Those automated phone prompts are just killing you. That and waiting in TSA are the two things that I think hell will be comprised of.
Okay, there you go. Well, maybe that's a good place for us to end. All right, good fun. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Wyatt Matters. I almost didn't get my kidney transplant back in April of 22 because I got COVID just weeks before my scheduled surgery. I was quickly hospitalized and put in isolation. Worried that I might lose my chance at this new lease on life, I asked the doctor to please put me on hydroxychloroquine. Ruh-roh. That was the wrong move, Roscoe. He sternly informed me that hydroxychloroquine was not effective and that it could be downright dangerous. Besides, if you go ahead and take it anyway, Mr. Wyatt, you will be removed from Mayo Clinic's transplant program. Now, you got to understand, hydroxychloroquine was approved for use in humans way back in 1955. That's over 70 years ago. Approved for treating all kind of medical problems. But I had to fight off COVID without it, with my life already compromised, but I had to do all the fighting all by my lonesome. And why was that?
Trust the experts, Mr. Wyatt.
Well, guess what? Less than a year after my transplant, Mayo mysteriously updated their website saying, and I quote, hydroxychloroquine may be used to treat coronavirus, COVID-19, in certain patients. Really? Really?
Just not you.
Previously, they said hydroxy was junk science. Now, not so much. Now, back in 2020, all sorts of COVID rules were popping up. Herd immunity, right? 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Stay home, save lives. But the top 2 rules were unquestionably, they just have to be these 2. Number 1, 6 feet to reduce transmission. Okay? Not 5, not 7, 6. Why 6?
Trust the experts, Mr. Wyatt. So everybody in America starts walking around like they're measuring for new curtains. And then those mysterious dots that started showing up everywhere on the floors, on the tables.
Oh, yeah.
There were churches putting dots in their pews.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, wherever you went, people were standing in line. They were all doing what we would call the 6-foot shuffle, you know. Like,
And why was that?
Trust the experts, Mr. Wyatt. I like that voice.
Years later, at a 2024 congressional hearing, America's most famous expert on COVID explained that the 6-foot rule, it just sort of appeared. In other words, what people had mistakenly received as gospel, they just made it up. But as a result of the 6-foot rule, Bruce, you had something that happened at your church.
I spent 2 days in the church building spacing seating groups for families, couples, and individuals in that order so that every seat outside the grouping was exactly 6 feet.
Yeah.
Every direction. Yeah.
Yep.
Then assigned spaces for people to sit. I'm not kidding. We had people call and reserve their spot, and we put names on those seats.
We did the exact same
And they're
thing.
still sitting there in those places.
Yeah, those habits die hard.
So Sam would touch that with a 6-foot pole. Like, now that's the industry standard. You got the 6-foot pole.
It got shortened. It used to be a 10-foot pole, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, there, I guess. Yeah.
Well, Todd, the 6-foot rule made for a lot of humor, but it wasn't harmless, was it?
No. And you know what? People got shamed. Like, you really could be on the outside of really close friends, depending on which side of this position you chose to do. Now, I struggle. I wanted to be compliant. I really struggled with it, but it did remind me of the days when restaurants and planes had the smoking, non-smoking sections, and they're right beside each other. Like, sounds like a good solution. I'm going to trust you on this, but it doesn't sound like science, really.
A bunch of us are recovering know-it-alls at this point, you know.
Speak for yourself.
But if the rules can be that far off base, maybe trust the expert. Trust the expert needs to be served with several grains of salt.
All right, let's move on to that other COVID rule. You remember this one? Wear a mask, save lives.
Yeah.
Good times. Remember when the face diaper debate felt like the most important war ever fought in human history?
Oh, yeah.
I know it's hard to remember that far back, but in March of 2020, again, the infamous Dr. Fauci said, and I quote, right now in the U.S., people should not be walking around with masks. He said that in March 2020. But 1 month later, Fauci flipped. This time, he said cloth masks are for everyone. Then by January, he's back on TV recommending double masking, surgical underneath, cloth on top. So America erupts into a civil war, 2 camps duking it out as the pro-maskers viciously shame the freedom lovers.
I mean, people took that so much to heart. You know, I have friends and relationships. Did you guys deal with that too? Like, really, you found people who just were paralyzed by fear from all of it.
I had a guy yell out at me in the middle of the service, "Why don't you make everybody wear a mask?"
Really? Really?
He boarded a plane the next day and flew to Florida. And I'm thinking, does it apply? 6, 7, I don't know.
Does anybody remember people sitting all alone in their cars and yet they're masked up like they're prepping for the apocalypse or something?
Not get that at all. I could not.
I saw
make
people with
sense
their
of that.
dogs wearing masks.
I dreaded wearing them. They made my face sweaty. They fogged up my glasses. My ears getting sore. You know. I just isolated because I didn't want the hassle. I just want to deal with it. Yeah, my ears are probably jug ears now because, because of the.
Let me ask this. Did any of you guys ever wear a mask thinking that because you had the mask, you were bulletproof?
Sort of. I had a mask made out of my smile. So when I put the mask on, there was an exaggerated smile, which made me feel bulletproof from COVID and did not deny people the assets of my facial.
Before we run out of time, I want to go to some scripture verses, and you tell me whether it applies. A simple man believes anything, but a prudent man gives thought to his steps.
Back in those days, we were all a little simple, right? You know, until the real experts started debunking the pseudoscience surrounding COVID. And as the truth unfolded, it allowed us to give thought to our steps. Like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Blindly following every new rule and scare without wisdom, discernment. And prudence, as the proverb writer says, can lead to mass confusion and fear.
Mass confusion?
Confusion.
Mass confusion.
10 seconds, John. Explain why trust the experts grew old over time. Or
I
not.
didn't hear the question, Steve. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's all right. We're out of time.
The best thing
we will be right back. Whenever you see an iceberg, all you're really seeing is the tip. Just 10% of an iceberg's total volume floats above the waterline, which means that the far more massive 90% is lurking below the surface in the icy cold depths where no casual observer can spot it. But it's that massive part that ripped open the Titanic and can flip an entire ship. So go ahead and admire the shiny distraction above the surface. Just don't fail to respect what's below. Because if you ignore that monster, your life can go from, ooh, that's a big hunk of ice, to total disaster just like that. Where are you going, Wyatt? Well, my point is, whether it's the tip of an iceberg or a missing football, no big deal, right? And does it really matter whether the shoe flew or somebody threw it? Big whoop, right? But Jesus disagrees. You see, Jesus believed that honesty and integrity and truth-telling were all so fundamentally important that, well, here's what he had to say about that. He said, simply. No, seriously, that's what he said. That's exactly how he starts. So if his formula really is that simple, maybe even I can understand it. He said, simply, let your yes be yes and your no, no. That's it? Yeah, pretty much. Although he did give some background. He said, you have heard that it was said. In other words, this doesn't come from Bible. This is just what people were saying. The problem is, what they were saying never got to the real heart of the issue. Jesus said, you have heard that it was said, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths that you have made to the Lord. You see, people were making oaths to everything. But the rule was only oaths made to the Lord actually counted. At least that's what the people said. But Jesus said, I tell you, do not swear at all. And instead, simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. You see, the religious insiders in Jesus' day were a lot like many in our day. They played games with their religion. They would take an oath about almost anything, somebody's head, the holy city of Jerusalem, the temple, all kinds of things. But the inside game was only when you make an oath to the Lord do you have to keep it. Any other oath was a wink-wink to the religious game players, because only the insiders knew that you had no intention of keeping that oath. So Jesus comes along and he says, do not swear at all. And what he's saying is, look, if you think you can create different levels of being truthful, that's not right. If you think that you only have to speak truth when you use the name of God or you mention the heavens where his throne is, don't you realize that God is everywhere? So let's do this simply thing. If you say yes, that means yes. Same thing if you say no. If I told you that tomorrow a camera would follow you everywhere and document every word you would say, and then it's going to get posted on YouTube for the whole world to see, would knowing that make any difference in how you handle yourself tomorrow? The way you speak and what you do? If the answer is yes, then hear me out, because there is never a moment when you can escape God, because he exists everywhere at once and at all times and places. I was counseling a friend who was married but having an affair. In fact, whenever his wife was traveling, which she often did, he would bring his little side piece into their home and he would be with her there. Just one problem. His wife had put tons of their wedding pictures all over the house. Big pictures, little pictures, group pictures, kissy face pictures, everywhere. He said, Wyatt, before I could bring my girlfriend over, I'd have to race through the house and turn all the pictures face down. Why? Well, when you're breaking your covenant vow, your integrity is getting clobbered. You think about it. If his wife was in the house, no way he'd bring his mistress in. But even just the image of his wife, even if it was just ink on a paper, a printout, that was enough reminder of his deception and of his sin against her. He couldn't even bear to look at her picture. And what Jesus is saying is, you cannot, never, not ever, turn God's picture over. No, he is, as David so simply put it, always before you. And that's true whether you realize it or not. So, simply that. Now here's the full quote from David. He said, I have set the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand, and I will not be shaken. Now, that doesn't mean that David put God there. It means simply that he recognized that God was there, always, right there, right alongside David. And because David finally recognized that God was, in fact, always with him, it kind of kept David from losing his integrity. More on that when we come back. Welcome back to the show. So David finally recognized that God was always with him, and that changed his life from that point forward. You see, just knowing that there's never a moment when you can just turn over God's picture and merely recognizing that he's always with you, that's the secret sauce of integrity. Because you understand that wherever you are, God is also there. You are just always before your God. Integrity is a funny little word. We toss it around like confetti at a parade, but ask somebody to define it, and trying to define integrity is like trying to define good taste while eating Cheetos in bed. We all know it when we see it, or at least we think we do, but switch off the spotlight so that we think, not even God can see me, and suddenly rock-solid principles become as slippery as wet soap in a shower. One minute you got it, but then out of nowhere it just starts shooting across the tiles and you're dancing around hoping that you don't face plant. Years ago, I worked for one of the most unprincipled leaders I had ever known. He claimed to be a Christian, but I learned more about leadership in the 2 years I served under him. And by learned, I mean I learned what a good leader doesn't do than I had learned in the several decades before I served with him. Yeah, it was that bad. To heal from that trauma, I took some counseling. And at one point, the counselor gave me an exercise. He said, Wyatt, I want you to complete the following sentence and provide several examples. And here's the sentence. Steve Wyatt has integrity when he fill in the blank. Took me a while to finish that, and I've never shared what I came up with until now. I guess sharing it with 1 million of my closest friends seems safe. This assignment became for me my working definition of integrity. To me, this is what Jesus had in mind when he said, simply let your yes be yes. All right, here we go. Steve Wyatt has integrity when he doesn't promise more than he can deliver. When he owns his mistakes instead of dodging, deflecting, and dumping the blame on others. He has integrity when he tells the truth even when it's awkward and there will be a cost. He has integrity when he keeps his word, full stop. If I say I'm going to show up, I show up, even if it's inconvenient, even when nobody would know if I didn't. Steve Wyatt has integrity when he gives credit to the one who deserves it because he's not going to hog all the spotlight. Steve Wyatt has integrity when he treats everyone the same, whether it's the CEO or the custodian. Steve Wyatt is consistent. There is no split personality between public persona and private life. He's the same guy at church, on the radio, on the golf course, or scrolling all alone at 2 a.m. Steve Wyatt has integrity when he views every person in his life as a soul that Jesus died for, as a potential masterpiece of his grace. Now, there's more to my list, but here's what I learned from doing that assignment. There is nothing simple about the simplies. If anything, these simplies are superpowers because they're the things that can build a trust that lasts and forge relationships that won't crumble under pressure. Plus, they will give you the kind of life where you don't have to hide from your own reflection. So chase these things. Just do it humbly, because Jesus' face must always be the only face on your flag. Do these things, and when your race comes to an end, you will have earned something far greater than simply applause. So we're back to the question, peeps. Did that shoe just happen to flew over the wall? Or did somebody purposefully threw it over the wall? You're probably thinking, who cares, Wyatt? It's no big deal. Just a little ice cube, just a little ball, right? But the more those big deals keep piling up, the more your integrity becomes more like Jell-O than the solid rock you ought to be able to run to and depend on. Besides, the small stuff doesn't say small. It carves ruts. And you know what a rut is? A rut is a grave with both ends knocked out. But that's just how it works. One tiny compromise today, another tomorrow, and before you know it, you're 6 feet deep and wondering how in the world did I turn into that guy? All right, we're going to bring everybody in and tell me where I messed up.
We like our job too much to do that.
So let's talk about this integrity thing and being the same on the outside as you are on the inside. And some of you guys mentioned some examples of this. Todd, you mentioned the Challenger explosion.
Oh, yeah,
You want to
yeah.
take that?
Well, only from the standpoint how hubris and our unwillingness to really look into ourselves can cause tragic consequences. We all know about the crash. But, they got to a place in the space program where they thought they were invincible. It became really routine. But yet there was people who saw serious flaws, and they were completely dismissed because of their track record. And then we saw the consequences, the big explosion. You just can't let your guard down. That's really what I take away from something like that. You have to be on top of your integrity all the time.
And you guys talked about Abraham Lincoln and lessons learned.
Probably the most respected statesman in our country's history. Mm-hmm. He once said of his own, he kept his faith and his honesty, integrity at the forefront of everything he said and did. And he said, no one has good enough memory to lie. Yeah. Mark Twain put it this way: if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Lincoln, he said, if I go down under the axe, at least I will go down with my colors flying. In other words, whatever happens in the decisions I make, I've stood on my integrity. And if I go down, I'm still standing on my integrity.
Yep.
Makes you wonder today how many of our leaders would do the same.
What-
Integrity is in short supply among politicians, and I say that unequivocally.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Wouldn't
So,
it be
you know,
wonderful if we could once again make our word to be our bond and to be able to stand up for what we stand for? When the outside doesn't match the inside, Todd, you don't just fool everybody else. You boil your own self, back to that frog in the beaker thing. And trust evaporates. It undermines human community, right?
It does. And I was thinking about Eugene Peterson, who we all like as a just really respective, just a good writer, a good pastor, but was an outstanding human being. And the problem with integrity, and the problem, it's not really a problem, but the problem we have with integrity is, he said there are no Oscars given for integrity at year's end. It's the thing that drives us from the inside. It's not admired. It's not looked up to. They don't set trends. There's no cash value to it.
And didn't you mention the impact that it has on you personally when someone that exhibits a lack of integrity?
Oh yeah, yeah. In my life, and all of us in this room, I mean, we've spent decades in relationships with people who get very candid about things that are in their life, and some of those people you're also dealing with in the context of their profession. And when I have a man who has a compromise in one part of his life, and so like he's in charge of my wealth management, or he's my lawyer, or he's some other part of my, it causes you to pause to go, if he can't have integrity in these little things in his life, what assurances do I have that he'll have integrity in these other parts of my life? It does cause you to step back and think about that.
Sure it does. And speaking of being the same on the outside and the inside, the Fauci mess. John, you had some more thoughts about that.
I'm not looking to give anybody an excuse for bad integrity or bad leadership, but I'm reminded of 1 Corinthians 13:12. For now we see through a glass darkly. Now I know in part. Paul is literally describing the human condition of making decisions with incomplete information. And I want to believe it applies to Fauci. It applies to the mask evangelist. It applies to the freedom lovers. Nobody had the full picture in that whole mess. And that's not an excuse. It's humility applied universally. And it doesn't let the experts off the hook, because the verse continues, but then I shall know fully. And I think that means that accountability is coming. We just don't hold it yet. I think it also means that when we know better, we should stand up and say so, even if we have to admit that it was us that screwed up. Mm-hmm. We don't get a lot of that out of Washington, the capital of covering up mistakes, but still, I can laugh at some of that stuff while still having grace for some of the individuals that were put in no-win positions of pseudo-authority, because I've been there and I've made mistakes that looked like integrity issues, and I've made mistakes that were integrity issues.
On behalf of our cast, our producers, our entire team, I just want to say thank you, YREFI, for giving us the opportunity to do this. This reach that you have provided for us is far and away beyond anything that we've ever known, and we will always be grateful. And I want to say, if you're under a load of private student loan debt, please give YREFI a call. I know they can help. I do agree with Jesus. Integrity is simple. It's simple in that integrity is being the same person even when nobody is watching. And it's about what is right, even though it's hard. In other words, integrity is a tough slog. It's as slippery as snot. Sorry, Mom. But if holding on to integrity was easy, it wouldn't be so rare, would it? But it is. Today's show is a plea for you to hold on to your integrity, especially when it feels like it's trying to slide away from you. So maybe you ought to write your own list of this is what integrity means for me. I used to call my list my guardrails, You know, on the highway, how they place the guardrails to keep us from veering off the road and into a ravine. Well, in that same way, integrity, guardrails keep you from veering off into a moral ravine. Then again, maybe guardrails isn't the right word these days, because guardrails are on the outside of you, right? But see, the Toyota that I drive, it has guardrails in my car. I literally have integrity embedded in my dashboard. So if I even slightly veer into a different lane, sirens start blaring and lights are flashing. And if I get too close to the guy in front of me, same drill. And God forbid I take my hands off the wheel. Isn't that annoying, Wyatt? It can be, but not nearly as annoying as the alternative. You see, my list is like a warning system, because if I can manage to keep my life in between the lines that my integrity demands, then maybe, I don't know, but maybe I'll make it all the way home safe and unharmed. And getting all the way home, that's why integrity, well, that's why it matters. We'll see you next time.